Hey there, Fish and Tooling here. Got a couple nice eaters here this morning. You can see got pretty fat bellies on them. The females have eggs in them, and they're eating a lot of shad and other bait fish now. So today I want to talk to you about their migration and eating patterns. So it's something that I've worked on over the last 4 or 5 years trying to figure them out, and I've got some pretty good ideas that I want to share with you. Okay, so typically coming out of winter after the ice is off, the saugeye will typically kind of go out into the lake into different areas and start feeding. You know, now that the water temp's heating back up, coming off of the ice, the water temp's down in the high 30s, and as it's coming up into the low 40s, they're starting to feed in different areas. So they'll go out into different channels and along different banks and things like that to go feed. And then really from there, you know, you can throw a lot of different baits in the spring. You can throw swim baits, crank baits, blade baits, all kinds of different stuff. It's really just about going out and seeking and trying to find them and getting that lure in front of them while they're hungry. And then as you get into the summer months, they then tend to be a little bit more scattered throughout the lake. Again, feeding really just about anywhere back into channels, into different bays, along different shorelines and things like that. So it's really just about going out and seeking them. You know, you can pretty much use about any bait. And then as you start to get into the fall weather, that's where it gets a little tricky. So right after late summer, after the shad have hatched, there's usually shad bait balls about everywhere, and it's really tough to compete against that. You'll see huge schools of fish like that obviously it's very easy for the saugeye to feed on. And so whenever I get into a channel or a bay and I just see tons and tons of shad at the surface, almost looks like it's raining, there's going to be a less likely chance for me to catch a saugeye in that area. So I typically wait until those shad start to die off when the water temp gets a little colder. First off, really looking for the water temp to get into the 40s. Once the water temp gets into the 40s, the saugeye like to then really migrate into specific areas to feed on those bait fish to get ready for winter. High 40s, the water temp's just a little bit warmer for, you know, the fall and winter months, so they're still a little bit more active, and it's okay to retrieve a little bit faster. So you can still throw swim baits. I like to throw blade bait, still making some noise, kind of rattle it in front of them. But then as the temperature drops down into the low 40s for the water temp, it's a little bit more difficult. They get a little bit more lethargic, so you got to slow your retrieval rate down a little bit. It's good to switch into some slower baits, like the swim baits. There's obviously a lot of different types out there. You want to kind of present it to them close to the bottom or jig it up, just a slow retrieve. And then of course, there's also a suspending jerk bait. So the suspending jerk bait will kind of just sit there motionless in the water, or what we call dead sticking, and you can get that in front of them and just a real slow twitch. You really need to slow your retrieval rate down when the water temp gets down into the low 40s and high 30s. And also considering water clarity. So a little bit darker water, you're going to want something that's a little flashier. You're going to want some things that make a little bit more noise. Not to say that the swim baits won't work, but the noise seems to help me a little bit more. Okay, so as far as their eating patterns, so when you get into these fall weather months, the saugeye kind of just eat whenever they feel like it. There really seems to be no specific time of day that they like to bite. For example, yesterday morning, I caught a couple around 8 a.m. And then really didn't get anything until closer to 9 or 10 a.m. This morning, I did not get a single bite until 10 a.m. So these first couple fish I caught at 10 a.m. And they'll also eat at 3 in the afternoon, 9 p.m., midnight, 3 a.m. So it's really more about timing more than anything. One of the hard things to do is to decide whether you should change your spots or move. I typically try to stick it out a half hour to an hour out of spot without getting a bite before I consider moving on to the next spot. It's definitely a lot slower type of fishing. You want to kind of sit in that spot, and you're going to spray cast in that one spot over and over and over, and you're waiting for those saugeye to be swimming through there looking for bait fish to feed on. Of course, for the night bite, what works best for everybody are slow retrieve swim bait or a suspending jerk bait. Once again, you're kind of just sitting in one spot and you're casting over and over and over again. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of mental toughness to sit there and cast over and over. It's completely different than bass fishing and crappie fishing and some of those other types of fishing where if you don't catch fish, you move on. So saugeye are definitely a little bit different, where you want to kind of be in the right spot when they're feeding, and as they're coming by and you happen to be pulling your lure by, they're going to hit it. So definitely a little bit tougher type of fishing here in the fall, but it's very exciting. As we get air temps down into the high 30s and low 40s, it obviously drops the water temp, and those saugeye start feeding, like I said, when it gets into the 40s. So okay, so hopefully this helped you out a little bit. Get out there and put the time in, and don't get discouraged if you're out there casting and you don't catch anything. You know, the timing's probably not right, or you might not be in the right spot. So just keep fishing to increase your odds to be on them. Also, one last note, as those water temps get down to be pretty cold, hypothermia is a very serious thing. So I strongly suggest you get yourself an inflatable life vest, something like this. It's very light to wear. You don't want to get caught, you know, falling into the water when it's in those 40-degree or 30-degree water temps. It's going to be very difficult to recover from that. So definitely remember safety when you're out there. Pick you up one of these life vests. All right, don't forget, strive to be fish rich.